It's 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday, not a special Tuesday, not a memorable one, just another day that looks exactly like the last 5,000 days of your life. You're sitting at your kitchen island, same chair, same coffee mug, same quiet tension in your chest that you've learned to ignore. For the last 15 years, you've performed the same ritual. You open the banking app, type the number, and press confirm again and again. No questions, no hesitation. Because this wasn't just a payment, it was survival with structure. But today is different. Today is the last time.
You type in $2,370.
You press confirm, and for the first time in your adult life, the screen doesn't say pending. It says zero balance, loan closed. This is the moment you imagined during sleepless nights, the moment you visualized during stressful mornings, the moment you thought would change everything. No more debt, no more obligation, no more weight. So why does it feel like nothing happened? The dog next door is still barking. Your coffee still tastes average. And that tiny crack in the ceiling is still there exactly where it's always been. And then a thought hits you. If nothing changed on the outside, what was all of this really for? Hey, my name is Mike. And today, I want to talk about something that almost nobody prepares you for. Not the process of paying off your house, but what happens after you finally do. Because the truth is, the final payment doesn't feel like freedom. For a lot of people, it feels like standing in the middle of a quiet room with no instructions left. In America, we don't just buy homes, we buy identity. From a young age, we're told to get a stable job, build credit, buy a house, and settle down. And somewhere along the way, that house stops being a goal and starts becoming a definition. You're not just living somewhere, you're a homeowner. Responsible, stable, successful. But when you sign that mortgage, you're not just agreeing to pay money, you're agreeing to structure your life around it. Every decision becomes filtered through one question. Can I still make the payment? That job you hate, you keep it. That risk you wanted to take, you delay it. That version of yourself you wanted to explore, you postpone it. Not because you're weak, but because you're committed. And slowly, without realizing it, your life becomes optimized for consistency over curiosity. Now let's talk about the real numbers. You buy a house for $300,000. Over time, with interest and other costs, you don't just pay $300,000, you pay closer to $600,000 or even $700,000. That means for decades, a portion of your time, your energy, and your life is redirected. Not into your dreams, not into your growth, but into maintaining a system. And here's the truth people don't like to admit. The system works. It keeps you disciplined. It keeps you predictable. It keeps you controlled. Because when you have something to lose, you behave differently. But when the payment disappears, so does the pressure. And when the pressure disappears, something unexpected shows up. Silence. No urgency. No forced direction, no external reason to keep pushing the same way. For the first time in years, you're not reacting to life, you're facing it. And that's uncomfortable. So what do most people do? They fill that space. A new car starts to feel justified. A renovation feels overdue. Upgrades feel like rewards. But they're not rewards, they're replacements. Because the human brain hates empty space. It wants stimulation. It wants movement. And if you don't consciously design your next move, you will unconsciously recreate your old life, just with more expensive distractions. Mark was 42 years old, a senior operations manager in Dallas. He had done everything right. Good education, stable career, steady growth. By his 40s, he had what most people call success. A house, a routine, a respected position, and then one day, the mortgage was gone. For the first time in 17 years, he didn't owe anyone anything. And that's when reality hit him harder than any bill ever did. Because now he had a choice. He could keep living the same life, or he could change everything. And the problem was, he didn't know who he was without the pressure. Most people think money problems are stressful. But identity problems are heavier. Because when you remove the struggle, you remove the excuse. You can't say, I have to do this anymore. Now it becomes, I am choosing to do this, and that shift forces honesty. So how do you actually use this moment instead of wasting it? First, continue the same monthly amount, but invest it instead of spending it. Second, focus on liquidity. A paid-off house cannot pay your bills. Cash flow gives you real freedom. Third, use your lower expenses as leverage. You can now walk away from things that don't align with you. You can take risks. You can build something of your own. That is where real power begins. The biggest lie about the American dream is that it ends with ownership. It doesn't. That's just the beginning. The house is not the destination. It's the foundation. But most people spend their entire lives building the foundation and never build anything on top of it. No freedom, no reinvention, just stability. So when you finally make that last payment, don't rush to upgrade your life. Sit in the silence and ask yourself one question. Now that I don't have to do anything, what do I actually want to do? Because that answer is your real life. And most people never get that far. And here's the part most people never talk about. Even after realizing all of this, most people still don't change. Not because they can't, but because change, real change, requires something far more uncomfortable than struggle. It requires responsibility. Because when you finally remove the pressure, the debt, the obligation, there's no one left to blame. Not your boss, not your bills, not your situation, just you. And that's where most people freeze. Because it's easier to complain about a life you feel stuck in than it is to take full ownership of a life you're free to change. Think about it. For years, your schedule was decided for you. Wake up, go to work, pay bills, repeat. You didn't need clarity. You just needed consistency. But now you need direction. And direction is hard because it forces you to ask questions you've been avoiding for years. What do I actually enjoy? What kind of work gives me energy instead of draining it? What kind of life would I build if I wasn't trying to impress anyone? And those questions don't come with easy answers. They come with uncertainty. They come with risk. They come with the possibility that everything you've built so far might not be what you truly want. And that realization, it shakes people because suddenly the problem is no longer external. It's internal. It's not about money anymore. It's about meaning. And meaning is something you have to create, not inherit, not copy, not follow, create. And that's where a small percentage of people do something different. Instead of filling the silence with distractions, they sit with it. They let it be uncomfortable. They let it challenge them. They let it expose everything they've been avoiding. And slowly, they start building something new, not based on fear, not based on survival, but based on intention. They start small. Maybe it's a side project they always wanted to try. Maybe it's learning a new skill. Maybe it's simply saying no to things that no longer align. And over time, those small decisions compound into a completely different life. A life that isn't controlled by payments, but guided by purpose. Because here's the truth. Freedom is not a moment, it's a skill. And like any skill, if you don't practice it, you lose it. That's why so many people who achieve financial freedom still feel trapped, because they never learned how to live freely. They only learned how to survive efficiently. And those are two very different things. One keeps you safe. The other makes you alive. So if you ever reach that moment, that final payment, that zero balance, don't treat it like the end of a journey. Treat it like the removal of a safety net. Because now you have the opportunity to build something without fear, to choose a path without pressure, to design a life that actually reflects who you are, not who you were told to be. And that's rare, because most people never get that chance. And even fewer people actually use it. So don't waste it. Don't rush back into comfort. Don't rebuild the same cage with better furniture. Take your time. Think deeper. Move intentionally, because this is the first time in your life where your decisions are truly yours, and that changes everything. At the end of the day, the goal was never just to pay off a house. The goal was to remove the limits that came with it. And once those limits are gone, you have two choices. Go back to the life you know, or step into the life you've never explored. Most people go back because it's familiar, because it's safe, because it doesn't require them to question themselves. But a few people, they step forward into uncertainty, into growth, into something real. And those people, they don't just build wealth. They build a life that actually feels like their own. So when you get there, when the numbers hit 0 and the silence finally arrives, don't run from it. Listen to it. Because that silence isn't empty. It's full of possibilities. And what you do next, that's the part that actually matters.
And here's something even deeper. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape pressure, but very few people ever learn what to do when it's finally gone. Because pressure gives you direction. It tells you what to do next. Pay this bill, go to this job, follow this path. You don't have to think. You just have to comply. But freedom is different. Freedom doesn't come with instructions. It doesn't tell you where to go. It just gives you space and waits to see what you do with it. And that's where the real difference between people shows up. Because when two people reach the exact same point, 0 debt, no obligations, no pressure, one of them builds something meaningful, and the other slowly drifts back into the same life they tried to escape. Not because they're lazy, but because they never trained their mind for freedom. They trained it for survival. And survival is reactive. Freedom is intentional. Survival says, what do I need to do today? Freedom asks, what do I actually want to build? And if you've never asked that question before, it can feel overwhelming. Because suddenly you realize you've been living a life that made sense but didn't feel right. And now you have a chance to change that. But chances like this, they don't stay open forever. Because comfort is always waiting. Waiting to pull you back into routine. Waiting to convince you that this is enough. Waiting to slowly rebuild the same patterns, just with better furniture, better gadgets, and better distractions. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up 5 years later in a slightly nicer version of the same life. Still feeling that same quiet tension. Still asking yourself, is this really it? That's why this moment matters so much. Not the payment, not the number hitting 0, but what you choose to do after. Because this is the point where most people stop growing. And a few people finally start. They start questioning. They start exploring. They start building something that actually reflects who they are, not what society told them to be. And that's not easy. It takes time. It takes discomfort. It takes being okay with not having all the answers. But if you lean into it, if you actually take this moment seriously, it can completely change the direction of your life. Because the truth is, you don't need more money to feel free. You need clarity. You need courage. And you need the willingness to step into something uncertain instead of running back to something familiar. So if this video made you think, if even one line made you question your life, don't ignore that feeling. That's not discomfort. That's awareness. And awareness is where everything begins. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you realize you have a choice, you can't pretend you don't. So the real question isn't, can you afford to change your life? The real question is, can you afford not to? Because time is moving either way. And 5 years from now, you're going to end up somewhere. The only difference is, did you choose that direction? Or did you just follow the default? If you want to build a life that actually feels like yours, not just looks good from the outside, then this is where it starts, right here, right now. And if you're serious about that, if you want more ideas like this, more clarity, more real conversations that actually challenge how you think, then make sure you subscribe. Because this channel isn't about quick motivation. It's about helping you see things differently so you can live differently. And trust me, once you start seeing clearly, everything changes.